beautiful souls. I hope you're doing well. Today, it is a great pleasure to do another creative, intuitive transmission, which is always inspired by my the Mella collective, which is the soul cluster I am part of. So beautiful, high frequency energies that are always bringing some inspiring messages in these times of transition. And so today, before we actually have a look at the creation we have made of Japanese washi chiyogami paper, which illustrates iconographically the essence of this message, we're just going to go rapidly in depth into the message itself. And we'll also have a look at our background here. But first of all, what the Mella Collective wished to inspire me today to talk about is this notion of caring for the Terran family. And what do I mean by that is that it is becoming more and more important that we perhaps be more inspired by our galactic brothers and sisters, the benevolent ones, who tend to treat each other not only as families, but as peoples, nations in general, but even on the galactic plan, as member of a big family, and which implies caring and receiving and a beautiful exchange of energy in all kinds of forms, which provides for all that is needed. And so that is definitely something we have struggled with here on Terra, to say the least. And to preface a little bit about this notion of caring for each other, I would like to just kind of brush a little bit of an overview of our situation on Terra, especially in the, let's say, in the matrix we have been living in for thousands and thousands of years, and the kind of programs we were part of, in the sense that we were kind of submitted to them, but at the same time, we nourished them as well unconsciously. So it's, we have to take responsibility for our part as well in that. And what I've noticed in my own humble experience for, 50 years or so now, is that in our societies, in our world, I've noticed that there's kind of three major patterns regarding caring for each other or regarding empathy. And so I've noticed a little bit like three kind of groups of people that kind of stand out. And the first group of people, which corresponds to, I have to say, a large percentage of our 3D matrix society, which has to do with individuals who are, let's say, empathically deprived. Not to say that they have the empathy of a dinner plate, as our dear Alex Collier says, but and I say this lovingly and with humor, because I really try to bring humor into this CIT, because it's a tough and delicate subject. But there are a lot of people who have, like all of us, because we all have, as Terrans, if we want, received or felt trauma, experienced trauma. We all did. I mean, I don't think anybody can really say they haven't. In all forms, on all levels, on different, it can be different for each, but everybody on Terra has suffered some form of trauma. And it's not to victimize ourselves. It's just a reality. It's just a fact. And then there's a significant portion of the population that, because of these traumas, they have felt a little bit numbed, and they have had a large difficulty in feeling empathy for themselves first, but inevitably then for others as well. And what happens with this portion of the population is that they are in a place of suffering, of great hurt, trauma, and shadow that has not necessarily been transmuted, addressed, worked on. These people often don't necessarily have a very introspective or inner going in within to heal their suffering, their traumas, their lackings. And so what happens is that they tend to project on others their needs. And so what happens is that they don't necessarily they don't take the responsibility not only for their traumas and their suffering, but also for their needs. And they tend to expect others to give them what they want, what they need desperately. And it can take many forms of energy. It can take the form of needing love, needing money, needing care, needing support, all kinds of way in which this group of people might end up siphoning a little bit, or how can I say, vampirizing others in a kind of a lack of empathy state by just needing, taking. And they have a hard time understanding that normally in a balanced way, things should be about giving and receiving, giving and receiving. And so they tend to suck a lot. And that can be very a great suffering for others who are feeling siphoned, but also a great suffering for them because they don't have the responsibility. They don't take the responsibility to give to themselves what they actually need and heal themselves. So they always are dependent on others for that. So that's a great suffering for everyone. Then you have kind of a second group of people, which we could consider a little bit more empathic if we want. And I know that many starseeds are part of, this second and third group I'll be talking about, but not just, there's all kinds of people who are very empathic. But the second group would be more empathic people who, like everybody else, have suffered trauma and difficulties and things. But they are very close to their sensitivity and to their empathy. And so, although they do have traumas that sometimes they might not have addressed, healed, maybe they didn't do the inner work to really take care and of their own needs and really heal themselves completely. What they will do, because they have a great sensitivity, is that they will throw themselves into the helping of others and providing other, and especially that group that's in great need that I first talked about. They will tend to completely kind of sacrifice themselves in a, kind of a mix of hero and victim kind of attitude, where they'll be just, I'm going to save the world, and I'm a good person. And so what they will do is they will completely exhaust themselves. They will often end up in breakdowns and dis-ease and all kinds of things. And what will happen then is that they will actually feel resentment towards the people who have a little bit less empathy or haven't done the inner work, because they'll say, well, I'm doing all this for you guys and you guys are not giving back anything. And they're very frustrated because they have these expectations that the other people, which are absolutely not equipped to give back, will give them that back what they need, instead of thinking, well, I'm going to go within myself and give myself what I need, and then I'll be so filled up that I will have extra stuff coming out of me, and then I will be able to give that to others in a kind of balanced way. So they lose themselves, they're in resentment, they're exhausted, lots of suffering there as well. Then we have a third group, which could be also considered quite empathic, but have developed what I really call this sense of resilience, where they have realized that they will never probably, perhaps they're just more realistic, but they realize that the world is not going to provide them with what they need anyway. So they have stopped even having that expectation. They just know that the world or the people will not give them what they want. So they think, well, either I kill myself, and because life is hopeless, or I actually go within myself and I will heal my trauma. I will face my shadow. I will, transmute everything that needs to be transmuted. And I will take responsibility of my sovereignty and freedom. And I'm going to become that person that offers myself what I need. And if there's extra energy and love and money and care, then I will willingly, lovingly, because I'm empathic, offer to others to support them, to be there for them. But I will keep some boundaries, some equilibrium, some balance, not to lose myself. And I will not expect anything from anyone. So I will just, be completely responsible for my needs. And that's actually, out of the three groups, probably the most healthy or balanced one. And it's not to judge the others, it's just a fact. However, there's a risk with that third group. And the risk with them is that often what will happen is that they're going to become so independent for their own needs, and they are so convinced that nobody else out there can be caring and loving for them, that they will not even expect or accept help. And they will tend to close themselves in this little world of isolation where, they're the only ones giving, and they don't even expect, and they don't think people can give back. And there's a little bit of a danger there, because they can become too independent, And at some limit, they can also become sometimes judgmental towards others because they're thinking, oh, others cannot give, they're not. So they, there's this risk there. So there's risks at three levels here. And so what we notice in this really unbalanced situation we have on Terra here is that we have these three groups that are kind of interacting with each other in a relatively unbalanced way. And the reason why I'm saying that is that I remember from Alex Collier's beautiful, um, in his webinars and what he shares about what he has observed in the Andromedan society that he's part of on the soul level, but that he's been on the ships and he's noticed how these people function. And he knows that it's not just for the Andromedans. I mean, most benevolent uh, 5 density or more, benevolent ETs up there, or also the same probably on in Earth, function in the way that I'm going to describe, which is about the fact that they consider each member of their community, of their society, of their star nation, and even galactic on the galactic plan as member of their family. And here on Terra, we have a little bit this tendency to, I mean, we also have a lot of troubles with our family, which is another problem. But even if things are all right with our families, we tend to like limit our care and love for our really, really close ones, either our immediate family, but then after that, the rest, whatever they can, whatever, it's their problem. And while benevolent nations tend to instead see all beings as member of a family because they know that we're all fractals of source, and because we're all fractals of source, we are all connected and linked. And so when we hurt someone, when we take a lot from someone without giving back, we just end up hurting ourselves. And they understand that. For them, it's like a basic logical thing. And it should be for us as well, but we have not been programmed in that way. So what I've noticed myself as member of the Mella Collective, and because the Mella Collective, we have multidimensional experiences on different planes and on different densities. So I know the Mella Collective in 5th density, but I also know them in 6th density and 9th density. And somehow I remember, my soul remembers the unconditional love and care that this soul group can provide. And it's not about, it's really about remembering that, because our souls, which often comes from 5th density or more, remember that. We know what it is to be loved unconditionally, never feel isolated, never feel rejected or, lacking anything. Because in these contexts, not only are we, like the third group, taking responsibility for our needs and we take care of our issues and, we transmute our problems, but also we're ready to accept to receive as much as to accept to give. So it becomes this incredible, beautiful circle of giving and receiving and caring, which is not, it's kind of effortless. Because what's happening right now on Terra is that because of the situation with these three groups, there's a lot of discrepancy between the first and second and third group, which means that the people who are giving, or more giving or more caring or a little bit more resilient, will tend to compensate for the void of the majority of the population that's not really into giving and caring. So what's happening is that because they're trying to fill that void, they have to kind of empty themselves all the time, unless they really keep their boundaries or being careful, but it's really easy to slip. So this is kind of the problem. While what we observe on other densities and levels is that since everybody feels responsible for themselves and for caring as well for others, everybody gives to themselves and to others. And so because everybody gives, there's a ton of generosity and care that's given in any form, care, love, resources, whatever, that there's no lack. And because there's no lack, people don't have to lose themselves in when they give, because they just have to give in a balanced way, in a balanced way. And then it just nourishes the kind of pool of care that's already present there. And when they need a little bit more of time to themselves, they can retract a little bit, but then they'll give back more later, so the pool is always filled up, while here the pool is always empty. And so we're tired, we're exhausted, or we'll always feel that we need to suck it out of the others. And so I feel that in that way, the Star Nations can be very inspiring in that way, in the sense that if we were each of us to be responsible for who we are and giving ourselves all that we need and respond to all of our needs and heal of our traumas, then we would be able to give more and more in a balanced way, and then the pool will fill up. And then since the pool would be all filled up, we wouldn't have to exhaust ourselves or just to simply suck everything from the pool, it will be much more balanced. So I think this is what the Mella Collective really wanted to inspire us or to reflect upon, is this notion of caring first for ourselves, but also to remember that we are a giant mega family as Terrans, and then at some point we'll also be part of the galactic family, which we're already kind of part of, but we don't realize it. But if we could already start by being as caring to other Terrans and beings, on Terra, as we could to ourselves, which some people still have a lot of work to do, even with just, caring for themselves. And then, this pool would fill up, and then it would be kind of effortless, and the natural balance of a chain exchange between beings in the form of love, of money, of care, of whatever, would just, this exchange of energy would just be naturally flowing, and then there would be no lacking. So that was the essence of the message here. And so what we have here in our background that was inspired by the Mella Collective again, just to illustrate this whole message, is that we have this beautiful angel or being that is very I find her very sovereign, very free. It's not like, oh, I bring you love, and she knows who she is. She's sovereign. She's giving herself what she needs, and she keeps her boundaries. She's not like about just, I don't know, giving herself so much that she loses herself completely. She remains who she is, and she keeps her balance. And the wings for me represent this sort of angelic realm, which we often associate with care and love and unconditional love, which in this way she represents. And then what we have is this landscape here, which is formed of, a kind of empty an empty kind of savanna there, where there's not a lot of vegetation. It's kind of bare, which could represent, our Terran situation, where, it's kind of void and empty of care and love. Well, I mean, a lot of people are giving care and love, but you know what I mean? Like the general situation on Terra is quite dire in that way. And so it represents this kind of, I wouldn't say wasteland, but like this kind of, bare landscape that's a little bit, with a gray, stormy sky with, blackbirds, which could really represent the stormy situation on Terra, which is, a dire situation where a lot of us are lacking love, resources, money, care, and a lot of things like that. We're all in the same situation, many of us at least. And then we're like feeling that we sometimes, we're lacking. And then this being just opens up the curtain, of this dark energy, which is basically an illusion, because if we chose each of us to take our part of the responsibility and work, we would just change this planet in 5 minutes, But she just opens the curtain of this dark thunder and reminds us that, it's not complicated. It just takes a change of perception, just lifting the veil and going within, doing that inner work of self-love, self-care that will permit us to be finally responsible for our own needs, and having the availability of energy and conscious availability for others as well, and be caring as well to others. And when she lifts off this stormy veil, then obviously there is behind an incredible amount of sunlight, of love, of beauty, of which symbolizes in this way the care and the equilibrium and the balance that we could produce on our Terra. And suddenly through this sunshine, this sunlight, then the bare kind of landscape we have behind suddenly enlightens and becomes golden with beauty. So I thought that was kind of a beautiful metaphor for what we are invited to invest in terms of time and care and resources and going within as well. Now let's have a look at our collage that we've created today. So our collage is entitled Maranahïl, Maranahïl, that I'm spelling here. And Maranahïl, interestingly, is made of a background, a beautiful, vibrant red background of branches and beautiful flowers. And to me, I often use this particular paper to illustrate the connection to the heart, because for me, the red in my collages, I use it to symbolize the connection to the heart. And in this case, this collage, the whole background is a connection to the heart, because this whole journey of going within and healing the trauma and then be able to be of care for oneself and to others is all about going into the heart connection, because this is what some people who don't really have a lot of empathy are suffering from, is this disconnection, isolation from their heart connection. And so we have this beautiful symbolic connection to the heart, but also grounding, because this tree, these branches and flowers for me really represent the grounding on Terra. So meaning that it is our job now as individual to ground on Terra the unconditional love that not only we can feel within our souls, within the fractal of source that we are, but also through source. And it's time to become these unconditionally loving beings of higher densities that we're meant to become. Then in the center, we have a larger circle, which is golden, which often for me represents this connection, the connection to source and the fractal of source that we are. And in this case, it represents a lot of birds in flight, which represent for me a form of liberation, opening your wings and becoming a full individual sovereign being that just takes its flight. And so for me, this really represented the group that really, well, not just the third group that really does the inner work and takes responsibility for their need, but also what we could become as future Terrans or present and future Terrans, a much more evolved series of, not series, much more evolved species of being that are actually connected to the unconditional love they have within and that are able to give to themselves and to others. Then the lower circle, which is navy blue with golden waves, for me really represent the challenges of, being on Terra, and perhaps a little bit this notion of the first group I mentioned, which is a little bit less connected to their empathy and then kind of tends to drag down people who are, trying to be loving and caring, but, and they're not necessarily doing their part, not only in the inner work, but also in the unconditional love movement. In the upper circle, which is a red circle with birds in flight, for me really represents the other two groups, which are more eventually empathy oriented, but that also can be at risk to either lose themselves in the process, but also be at risk to be so independent, which is represented by the birds in flight, so independent that they don't need others, and then they become a little bit isolated. And so there's a risk there. So all of this is compensated. These kind of two tendencies are kind of compensated and bring back into balance visually, iconographically, through the central circle, which is a golden small circle with the flower of life motif, which for me represents source energy and the center of source, to which, I mean, we're all fractals of source, as I've said, and we all have potentially within us this capacity through the heart to connect to source and become these unconditionally loving and giving beings to ourselves and to others. And then we have the two branches that are going in two different directions. And they are made of the paper that I use to represent stars and star nations. So in this case, for me, it represents the inspiration bar star nations. I mean, not only my Mella collective, but, all star nations like the Andromedans and others who inspire us to perhaps include a little bit more in our way of living, this notion of giving, which is represented by the branch that goes up and is blooming into giving, And then the lower branches represents for me the receiving. And they understand that giving as much as you receive and receive as much as you give is absolutely crucial for a balanced society, which we absolutely do not have right now on Terra. So this is how iconographically Maranahïl really represents the essence of this message. So if you resonated with the high frequencies and high vibration of this message and what it inspires, and that is imbued in the creation I've done here as an original or as a digital file, those are available on my website at abigaëllerichard.com on my boutique, if that interests you. So this is for today. I hope you have enjoyed this message. I hope it has resonated with you. I think it really is something that is becoming more and more crucial right now in our lives to get more equilibrium about giving and receiving, because there's such a large amount of people who are in need of receiving, and either because they're not giving themselves what they need, they're not doing the inner work to really heal certain things and give themselves what they need and take responsibility for their own need, for their needs. But there's also, you know, some problems with the fact that the way our societies are organized, the way the money system is working is very absurd and unfair. People expect everything for free because they don't have any resources, which is completely understandable because they're lacking. But again, money, like any type of energy, like love, like care, is an energy. So it's always about a flow, you know, it's always about, it's not about taking, it's also about taking, receiving. It's the same thing with love, unconditional love. You know, if you don't have unconditional love for yourself, then you're not giving it to you. So how can you give it to others? You know, you're already empty. So giving it back to yourself, then you're so filled up that you have extra and you give to others, and it's a flow and it's natural and it comes naturally. And, you know, more and more I feel that Terrans will be able to experience such a level of balanced exchange of any type of energy, hopefully. So I hope this has inspired you. So keep up the high vibes, take immense care of yourself, and I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye. All my gratitude for helping this channel bring high vibrations and high frequencies to more people. Ooh.